So I guess in closing, if I was to encapsulate my life, I would say, again, my passion has always been the martial arts, and the big thing for me is I would like to be remembered as somebody who has principle and integrity and has a sense of honor. Now, having said that, I'm fallible like anybody else. I used to say to people I'd be a 10th degree if I did nothing wrong. But I'd like to be somewhat of a role model within the scope of what I can, but I still remember that this is my life, my journey is here, I've still got this much to go. I would like to think that I can never stop the desire to learn and to be better. My least favorite word in the can't even speak now. English language is mediocrity. There's so much mediocrity in society and what people do. Oh, I'm good enough, I'm as good as them. I always say as martial artists, we don't want to be the GP, we want to be the heart surgeon, the brain specialist. We want to strive for excellence. But at the same time, remember that I would like to think as a martial artist that I'm as aware of the martial as I am of the art. And that balance is crucial, because today's art is getting very much more about it doesn't work in the street, doesn't work in MMA. It's very much a combat mentality, which is all well and good, but if you walk around with all you have in your head is that combat sense, I think that's quite a destructive headspace. If you look at the samurai and Bushido, I used to read a lot on Zen and Japanese culture and everything, and look at the idea of the samurai being versed in cha-no-yu, tea ceremony, or ikebana, flower arranging. In other words, they did things that gave them a balance. There was a yin and yang to behavior. The tea ceremony is a great example. You go into a space and you experience the sound of the water and the breeze and everything. You experience nature. What a great antithesis to the warlike attitude we're supposed to have as warriors in the martial art. And that's a message that I would like to try and pass on. As I said, listen, I make mistakes all the time. You want to ask my wife what I'm like in the car. But I'm still learning. I'm trying to control it, but in most areas of my life, I'd like to be as a 69-year-old to teach kids that it's not over when you're 40. It's not about age. It's a matter of what you accept. Age is just a number. I'm very much on the same page as Sensei Benny when he says he'll never utter the words, oh, I'm getting too old, I've got to slow down, got these injuries, because he believes that you'll have a psychological crutch and an excuse to never have to behave fully or participate fully anymore. And I'm very much in that mode. A lot of the things I've done in my life with movies especially, it's really interesting. As I think I alluded to, the things you do when you do them, you never think of the future effect of that. But being an actor or being able to express my martial arts on screen and then learning how much you influenced a kid, that as a result of what you did, he then takes up martial arts because of your expression, that's just very heartwarming. And there's been a lot of incidents like that where, as I said, you don't think they're going to have an effect. I had a student that sent me a text. He said, oh, I trained with you 30 years ago. He said, I don't do martial arts now, I'm a school teacher. But he said, I still use the lessons and the way you would conduct a class in my classroom. Had nothing, he's never even put in a gi in 30 years, but I said, oh man, how great is that you can have just a minimal or major effect on somebody's life. So that's what I'm trying to do, is be an example like that. But, I was having a conversation with Farah Boys the other day about role models. I get a little upset that there's a saying that you can be famous and be a role model, but you can also be a role model because you're famous. And if, as a martial artist, people look up to, a lot of people say, well, I don't want to be a role model. I'd say, but you really don't have a choice. If you've achieved this level of excellence, you're putting yourself out as this guru, this sensei, this master, you've kind of taken on that mantle of being a role model to these younger kids who look up to you as a fighter, as a tough person. Hence the result of balancing with the art. Hence why it's so important, I believe, in today's MMA world to still train and bow. to show children that us as good fighters will still show respect to each other, humble ourselves. We will show, conduct, behavior that's worthy of a so-called martial or a spiritual martial artist. And I think a lot of styles are getting away from that. I would like to think I'm trying to do my bit to bring that in, to still acknowledge that it's not the 2 hours on the mat, it's the 22 hours off the mat that's important. When you don't have a gi, when you're not wearing a big tag that says you're a 10th degree master or anything, then what does it get down to? It gets down to how you behave, how you interact with society. How are you with your wife, with your kids, if you happen to have them, with your friends. So that's what I'd like to be remembered from. And as I said, I'm still learning. Don't get me wrong. Don't think I'm putting myself as an incredible role model. No, it's a journey. I'm here. What I'm trying to do with it, what a lot of martial artists do is, along the way we've experienced winning and losing and hardship and joy, and we learn things. At this stage, my job is to just illuminate the way for those students coming after me. I've had an incredible career, but I'm still here. I still may change dramatically over the next 20 years, should I live that long. But my role is to help make that journey for those younger martial artists a little bit easier, and very importantly for them to realize it's not just the time on the mat. The life lessons of all that hardship, of that sweat, of that blood, and often a lot of pain, you can take into your everyday life. Because remember, we need to remember that even if I'm on a film set, that's now my battlefield. How do I get the job done? How do I choreograph stuff that'll work for this movie? That's the battle. It's not just this. And I've learned a lot of those lessons through being a martial artist. So that's my role. And as I said, role models, whether we like it or not, I believe we are, to whatever extent we want. That's an obligation. I would like the message to be also that take that up, take that mantle. If you're out there punching around and learning stuff you learned yesterday off YouTube or in a book and everything, and you sound this amazing person, then you complete dick off the mat, I would say really look at that. Look at the example that you're setting. And again, as I said, I've had an incredible career. I've trained in a lot of different arts. I've learned something different from all of them. Judo, then there was karate, then I started kickboxing with Sensei Benny. The Jet was an incredible journey. I trained with Fumio Demura, who's just the most wonderful man. I remember him being so kind and so giving, and thinking, wow, that's what a sensei should be. Tina Severano, Sal Ibanez, the way they conducted themselves to me as a younger man. I've been involved with Chuck Norris system, got graded to 8th degree by Chuck last year at the UFAF convention, which was fantastic. And 9th degree in Zendokai, now 5th degree in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under the Machados. Been doing that for 30 years. So again, my other drive is I ain't finished. I've still got so much more to go. I'm going to continue to strive to get out of any thoughts of mediocrity. So that's the life, but again, it's not finished. There's many more chapters to come.
3, 2.